The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, shortly on the floor, Republicans are about to finally bring up the Massey Counter bill to release the Epstein Files. We had to drag this leadership here kicking and screaming. And I appreciate their sudden and stunning change of heart on this issue. But I want to state for the record that the Republican leadership has tried to block this day for months and months and months. And I also want to state for the record that Donald Trump could release these files on his own, today, right now, right this very second. He doesn't need to wait for Congress to pass the bill. He could release the files himself, but he won't. That is why we are here, because he refuses to act. Meanwhile, the Republican majority has blocked transparency at every turn. They stonewalled in committee. The gentlelady from North Carolina and every Republican on the Rules Committee voted 9 times to block my amendment to release the Epstein files. 9 times. Republicans were so afraid of my amendment that Speaker Johnson shut down the Rules Committee and sent us home early in July. And then he refused to swear in a new member of Congress for weeks because she promised to be the 218th signature to force this bill forward. Only four Republicans signed the discharge petition. Every single Democrat signed on. In a few moments, I'm going to yield time to Representative Massey, who has been the Republican leader of this effort in the House, alongside Representative Khanna on the Democratic side. And here's why I'm doing that. This bill should be getting a full hour of debate on the floor. But Speaker Johnson, I guess at Donald Trump's direction, is throwing every procedural gimmick at the wall to see what sticks. And he's trying to limit debate on the floor because for some reason he is very, very afraid of talking about this. So that's why I'm donating a significant chunk of my time to members who have been silenced by the Speaker for the terrible crime of demanding truth and transparency. Now, if I had to guess, most Republicans will probably vote in favor of releasing the files. But they're not voting yes because their conscience changed. They're voting yes because Donald Trump tells most of them how to vote. And he realized he's lost on this one. He says the people who support this bill, quote, betrayed the entire Republican Party. Really? Really? How is accountability for a pedophile something Donald Trump campaigned on? How is that now a betrayal? This was his issue, his idea. He ran on releasing the files. And by the way, to those who say that Biden should have released these files, let me just address that right now. You're right. He should have. But he didn't make it his #1 issue, and he's not the president right now. Donald Trump is. He could have released the files at any point over the last 11 months, but he has not. Republicans have had months to sign the discharge petition. They had months to bring this bill to the floor. But this leadership has chosen obstruction. They don't want to pass this bill. They don't even want to talk about it on the House floor. And so that's why debate matters. And with that, I reserve my time.
The gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. The gentlelady from North Carolina is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let's be clear. Republicans don't oppose the full transparency of the Epstein files. We embrace the Oversight Committee's task of doing just that. We embrace Representative Massey's legislation here today by putting it up for a vote under suspension. I'll be voting for it. We already have a House investigation that carries the full force of law, and there's no opposition to respecting the majority's wishes to get this codified into law. Let's get to it. Let's get the vote and end these false debates, straw man arguments, and non sequiturs. We tried to pass this bill last week, but Democrats wouldn't agree to doing so. Let's vote now. Democrats should stop, listen, and take yes for an answer. I reserve.
Gentlelady reserves. The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, the gentlelady doesn't oppose this? Boy, you have a funny way of showing it. I gave the gentlelady 9 opportunities in the Rules Committee to bring this measure to the floor. 9 opportunities. And every time I brought up an amendment, she voted it down. 9 opportunities. So to say that somehow this is always what you wanted, I don't know. That doesn't pass the smell test. Mr. Speaker, I yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from California, Mr. Khanna.
Gentleman is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your leadership over the last 5 months to make sure that this bill came to the floor. Thank you also to Don Sisson for his leadership and understanding of all the rules to make this possible. Now, as we are here today, I saw on CNN that the president is meeting with the Saudi prince. You know what America First means to me? How about meeting with the survivors? How about making sure that America's girls are not being raped? That's what it means to be America First, not going and just meeting with Saudi princes. You know, I am so honored to be here and working together with Congressman Thomas Massie, who's shown so much courage and principle, and I'm so honored to be here next to Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene and Congresswoman Nancy Mace. I was telling someone, they said, what did you learn through this process? I said, sometimes we have to see people not just through their caricature. And I had caricatures of Representative Greene and Representative Massey and Representative Mace. But what I saw is they cared as Americans and human beings, and they stood with courage. And they looked at this not from politics, they looked at this as what is right. And I'm proud today to be a member of Congress. I'm proud to work with them, and I'm proud of what we are showing this country is possible. That if we actually care about American values, maybe we can overcome some of the bitter divides in this country. If we don't care about just getting the credit and maybe work together, we could actually care about forgotten and abandoned Americans like the survivors that testified today. I was so moved by their testimony. How can you hear their testimony, as all of us have heard, see their tears, see them holding up photos at the age of 14, and think that they're not telling the truth? This is not politics, this is humanity. Sometimes we get into these chambers and we forget what happened, of how we grew up. Most of us, we grew up, we went to barbecue, we went to Little League games, we went to church or temple. We didn't fly around in private jets and go to a rape island. We didn't buy off politicians and tell them to keep quiet. We didn't think that it was normal to abuse or rape young girls. And then they're saying, well, we don't know if they were 18 or 22. Come on, it's rotten. Then they say, well, just care about the price of eggs, just care about the price of health care. You know what's more important than that? American values. These rich, greedy men abused American values. They abused what's sacred about this country. They abused what built this country.
I yield the gentleman additional minute.
And it is time that they're going to have a reckoning. The Epstein class is going to go. And the reason they're going to go is because the progressive left and the MAGA right and everyone in between is finally waking up against this rotten system. And when people are united, when people work across the aisle, amazing things can happen because the American people are kind and good and decent. So it's an honor, Congressman Massey, to have worked with you, and I salute particularly the courage of Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, and Nancy Mace. None of this would have been possible without their courage in standing up on the petition and for what they did. I'll yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. Gentlelady from North Carolina is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, at the top of this page that I have, I've written Democrat hypocrisy on Epstein. That's what we're hearing today. I'm proud to be a member of the Oversight and Government Reform Committee. I'm proud to have supported the full investigation into the Epstein files on that committee. Furthermore, I'm proud to have supported formalizing that investigation by taking the decisive step in directing that investigation by a special rule provided by the Rules Committee. This gave the oversight investigation the full weight of the House of Representatives behind the committee's existing subpoena power. Very important in this debate. Let's get things straight here. In just a matter of hours, we're going to get to vote on the Massey bill. But that won't preclude the existing House Oversight and Government Reform Committee's investigation in any way. And that's a great thing because that investigation is yielding results. We now know that one of Jeffrey Epstein's closest confidants was apparently Larry Summers, a cabinet member in the Clinton administration. We now know that a Democrat member in this body, Stacey Plaskett, was colluding with Jeffrey Epstein in real time during a hearing. And the subject matter? How to take down President Trump. Mr. Speaker, you can't make this stuff up. We now know that Epstein himself hated President Trump. It's in black and white. We now know that one of the chief Epstein victims stated that President Trump never acted inappropriately. And don't forget, that oversight investigation specifically subpoenaed Bill and Hillary Clinton for their ties to Jeffrey Epstein. They haven't been quick to step into the breach and exonerate themselves, have they? But the truth will continue to come out as it has because of Republicans and a current Republican-led House Oversight and Government Reform Committee investigation, one that already carries the full force of law. Let's see where that leads. I reserve.
Gentlelady reserves. The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, the gentlelady says that just trust her and the Republican leadership. And I got to tell you, I can't after what I saw unfold over these last several months. Obstruction and using every maneuver possible to avoid this moment where we're having here today. And I want to say that for the record, it doesn't matter whether there's Republicans or Democrats or independents that are implicated in these files. We believe in accountability for everybody who abuses young women, and we believe in justice. And that is kind of what's uniting many of us on this, on this side of the aisle here today. And I just want to, again, I want to thank Representative Connor for his leadership. I want to thank Representative Massey, Representative Green, and Representative Mace for their courage and for their willingness to stand up for what is right. We don't agree on very much, but we do agree that there ought to be accountability when young women are abused, and so that's what this is about. So, Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Massey, control the remainder of my time.
Without objection. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, may I inquire as to how much time I have?
You have 17 minutes remaining.
I yield myself 2 minutes.
The gentleman is recognized for 2 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, today's an extraordinary day in this chamber. If my colleagues will vote for this measure, we'll see justice triumph over politics. Truth will triumph over deception and obfuscation. Transparency will triumph over dark money. Partisanship will fall away to bipartisanship. Grassroots, the people, will reclaim the people's house with this vote. It's going to be a victory for survivors, not just survivors of the Epstein sex trafficking scandal, the 1,000 survivors that exist. Some of them are victims. They're no longer alive. Some have committed suicide. They share one thing in common. Their youth was robbed from them. Much of their lives were robbed from them, but they're claiming it back. We're going to help them claim that back. But it's not just a victory today, if this vote prevails for those survivors. It's a victory for every person, man or woman, boy or girl, who's been victimized sexually in this country. Anybody who's been a victim of sexual assault, or maybe they've been victimized by a family member. Maybe it's not a billionaire. but they're all waiting and watching to see what we do today. They're wondering, if I go to mom or dad, will anything happen? If I go to the sheriff, will anything happen? Well, we have a chance today to make something happen. Something that's not happened, something that should have happened decades ago, and that is to get justice for these victims and survivors and transparency for America. That's what this vote is about today. And I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Kentucky reserves. The gentlelady from North Carolina is recognized.
I reserve.
Gentlelady reserves. Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
I now yield 5 minutes to the gentlewoman from Georgia, Mrs. Green.
The gentlelady from Georgia is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I proudly rise today in a bipartisan effort to release the Epstein Files, finally, after 5 administrations have covered it up. Earlier today, I attended the press conference where the survivors, they're not victims, the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's sexual abuse and sex trafficking told their stories. And they told stories about how it started back in 1991, 1996, and they continued on through the decades. And they told stories about how they told someone and tried to get help. They told the FBI, and they weren't listened to. And they told law enforcement, and no one did anything. And these women don't just number a few. These women number around 1,000 women. And they are victims of something that's unthinkable. And this should have never, ever happened. This was the biggest fight I think I've seen in Washington, D.C. This is my 5th year here. And this was a fight that we should have never had to wage. It should have been the easiest thing for every single member of Congress. It should have been the easiest thing for the Speaker of the House. It should have been the easiest thing for the President of the United States to release all the information, every single file, on behalf of these American women. These American women aren't rich, powerful elites. They do not have someone paying for their airline tickets or paying for their trips or paying for their expenses every time they try to do something to get this information out. These are your average Americans. And you want to know what the Epstein files represent, the cover-up represents to average Americans? It represents the failures of the federal government and Congress to the American people. And that is what people rose up about in 2024. They wanted and demanded transparency from their government and for Americans finally to be put first. And today, with this vote, we are finally putting these victims and these survivors of Jeffrey Epstein and the cabal of rich, powerful elites that expands not just here in the United States of America, but to other countries as well. We're putting them last. And that is exactly what Americans want. You see, for far too long, Americans have been put last. And they're sick of it. They're sick and tired of it. And this is why they don't trust Congress. This is why they don't trust the government. And here's the problem. All of these women who have suffered in shame for years and years and years, women who were terrified, women who were intimidated, women who were threatened, just like Virginia Giuffre. And now she's dead. And these women should have never faced that, for this information to come out. And we, especially the 4 Republican members of the House of Representatives, we should have never faced intimidation and threats for us to get this vote to come to the floor. Never forget, there were 4. Thomas Massie, myself, Nancy Mace, and Lauren Boebert. We had to sign a discharge petition, and we had to fight through intimidation, and we had to endure it for months to push that discharge petition finally to 218 to get this vote to come out. This is what the American people are sick of, and rightfully so. Now, where does this go from here? The question will remain, will the Department of Justice release all the information? Will a judge in New York release the information? Will the CIA release the information? And will foreign governments release their information? Or will this continue after this vote today be a cover-up? A cover-up of the rich, powerful elites that bond together in sex and human trafficking abuse and all types of global business that enriches them but never serves Americans. The American people will know, and the victims, actually the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, will know because they know the list of names. And I remain dedicated to my promise to read those names here on the House floor if those women ever find them in a place that it needs to be done. I yield back to Mr.
Gentlelady
Massey.
from Georgia yields back. Gentleman from Kentucky reserves. Gentlelady from North Carolina is recognized.
I reserve, Mr. Speaker.
Gentlelady reserves. Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
I yield myself a minute and 30 seconds.
Gentleman's recognized for a minute.
I want to thank the generosity of Jim McGovern, Representative McGovern, for granting us this time. I'm embarrassed for my own party today. I'm embarrassed we withheld signing in, swearing in a duly representative of the people for 49 days just to avoid this vote that's finally going to happen today. I'm embarrassed that my own party isn't going to yield me time to debate this, even though they say they support it, and I authored it. They don't even want to yield me time to debate this during the bill debate. But I'm thankful. Let me tell you who I'm thankful to. These three brave women, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nancy Mace, and Lauren Boebert, they have been threatened. They have been intimidated. Physically, politically, it's disgusting. And not by the far left. They have been intimidated by people in our own party. And for what? For seeking justice for these victims. So my hat's off. I congratulate them for standing strong. I've always wondered, where were the Republican men during this battle? We've taken 5 months. These three women and I have had to drag our party to this floor today to even vote on this. And Ro Khanna is the most to be thanked here in an extraordinary display of bipartisanship. He did not hesitate when I asked if we wanted to bring this bill to the floor together, if he would stand in the trenches with me. He said yes. With that, I reserve.
The gentleman reserves. Gentlelady from North Carolina is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentlelady is recognized.
Boy, we need to get facts straight here. President Trump's DOJ, in his first term, arrested and prosecuted Jeffrey Epstein. We, on our side, want justice to prevail in this case and in every case. Speaker Johnson has always been clear that if the discharge petition reached the necessary signatures, that the House would consider the legislation, and that's what we're providing for in our rule today. In fact, as soon as the petition hit 218 votes last Wednesday, House Republicans offered a unanimous consent request to pass the legislation then. However, the Democrat leader would not give consent to do that last week. Why? Because they're not really interested in this. They're interested in some other things. And, Mr. Speaker, I have to correct the record. Mr. Massey did not request time from me. I'm the person who controls the time on the Republican side, and he did not request time from me, or I would have given him time. I reserve.
Gentlelady reserves. Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
I'd like to now recognize the Gentlelady from South Carolina for 5 minutes, Nancy Mace.
Gentlelady from South Carolina is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank my colleagues today for the time, Mr. McGovern and Mr. Khanna, for the 5 minutes on the floor to speak about an issue that is not political for me. Helping the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein and his horrific, gruesome, brutal sex trafficking ring is deeply personal. And while we often have many disagreements about a lot of issues, maybe most issues, today they are allowing us to speak on the floor, and I want to thank my colleagues, Congressman Massey, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Lauren Boebert, the four of us making history today over the discharge petition and delivering justice for those who have desperately fought for it for, in some cases, almost 30 years. I wore white today because I wanted to reflect on the innocence of the young women who had their innocence stolen from a demon named Jeffrey Epstein, from demons, friends of his, rich and powerful people who stole their innocence as young as 14 years old. It was taken from them, and they've never gotten it back. I'm also wearing white today to recognize the courage that it takes for women to come forward, the sacrifices to them personally, professionally, financially, the embarrassment, the humiliation, the shame that we still deliver on the backs of women who have been brutalized, who've been raped, who've been assaulted. The shame that the media pours over their heads, that their colleagues, their friends, their neighbors, their loved ones, because you come forward and because you talk about sexual assault, you are not a slut. It's not because of what you wore. You're not a whore. But that's how women are treated, and you're not lying. And I want every woman to know, every Epstein survivor to know, every woman across the country who is a survivor, who is a victim of assault, that today, we see you. And this fight and this vote tonight, I see it is about the Epstein victims, but it's about much more than the Epstein victims. This is about the powerless, taking power away from the very powerful. This is about giving women who never had a voice, giving a voice to the voiceless. This is about their sacrifice. This is about having and recognizing their courage. This is about justice for the Epstein victims, but it's also about hope. Earlier this year, I gave a speech right here on the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives, detailing trauma that I experienced, endured, and am a survivor of, that I accidentally uncovered 2 years ago, almost to the day. And today, I still don't have justice, like millions of women across the country. When I spoke out, I got attacked. When I spoke out, I was shamed. When I spoke out, I was defamed and smeared, and that goes on today, right now, in the present. God sure has a funny way of working through us. I, like many of the Epstein survivors and many other survivors across the country, I don't think I will ever heal from the destruction my abuser did to me. But I can heal by being a vessel and being a voice for all those who need it, and that's why we are here today. That is why I will never abandon a single survivor ever, and I will never waver. I spent my morning talking to law enforcement and others about another potential Jane Doe number 5, who may be another sexual assault victim in the case that I uncovered 2 years ago. It's very difficult for us to come forward, but I want to thank the women who have, the Epstein victims, the victims in the case that I uncovered. I want to thank all of you for being a voice, for giving me hope. Maybe one day I too can get justice. Thank you, and I yield.
Gentlelady yields back. Gentleman from Kentucky
Reserved.
reserves. Gentlelady from North Carolina is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Our colleagues want Americans to believe that this discharge petition and underlying legislation are the be-all and end-all in this investigation. However, it's House Republicans who've worked tirelessly to achieve true justice for victims. To date, the significant information that has come out has come from the Oversight and Government Reform Committee as a result of its issuing 13 subpoenas. We've released 65,000 pages of documents from the Department of Justice, the Epstein estate, which was not mentioned in the underlying legislation, former U.S. attorney, and others. Let me state again, the unanimous consent request to pass the legislation immediately last week was blocked by the minority leader. Full stop. If Democrats truly cared about finding justice immediately for victims, this legislation would have been passed last week. Instead, they want political theater to capitalize on. House Republicans, on the other hand, remain focused on truth, accountability, and delivering real justice for Epstein's victims, not political points. I reserve.
Reserves. Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, may I inquire as to how much time I have remaining?
Gentleman has 5.5 minutes remaining.
I yield myself 3.5 minutes.
Gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, all that is necessary for evil to prevail is for good men to do nothing. And we've had a lot of good men doing a lot of nothing on the other side of the aisle until we did something. 3 brave women and myself and the Democrat caucus. We did something. And then what did they do? They've opposed us every step of the way. They've lied about the legislation. Let me tell you some of the lies they've told. They've said that it doesn't protect victims. Well, if that is so, why were dozens of victims with us today at a press conference urging this body to pass this legislation? It's because this legislation specifically protects victims. They've said this legislation does not prevent the release of child pornography. Of course it does. We have a specific provision in our legislation to prevent that. They've said so many falsehoods about this legislation, but now they're going to vote for it, hopefully enthusiastically. But really, they've been drugged to this. Our judicial system is broken. If it were working, there wouldn't be 1,000 victims who haven't seen justice yet. They are victims of the Epstein class. I begrudge nobody success that they become a billionaire. But if you think being a billionaire or buying politicians keeps you out of the judicial system, lets you rape young women, lets you traffic women, you've got another thing coming when this bill passes. Do not let the Senate muck this up. There have already been efforts to derail this, our discharge petition. The Oversight Committee has released thousands, tens of thousands of documents. That's fine. Keep working. How many names have you released? 0. You are still protecting, or the DOJ is protecting, pedophiles and sex traffickers. The time for that to stop is now. Now, our speaker says, oh, this bill needs amended in the Senate, and specifically, he's trying to create a loophole. He's trying to categorize the pedophiles as victims. He's saying, oh, we don't embarrass the people that went to the rape island. We should protect those names against unreliable accusations. Is he calling all of these victims unreliable? They've testified to the FBI. The FBI has these names in their possession. I asked the FBI director in a hearing, have you looked at the documents? No, he trusts everybody that's been there for decades. That is wrong. Do not let the Senate muck this bill up and if you're a party to that in the Senate, you are part of this cover-up that we are trying to expose. I am sorry if one of your billionaire donors is going to get embarrassed because he went to Rape Island. That is what they have coming. In fact, they need to be on the other side of bars, a lot of them. Some of them will be embarrassed, but some of them need to go to prison, and the survivors know that. So how will we know if this bill has been successful? We will know when there are men, rich men, in handcuffs being perp-walked to the jail. And until then, this is still a cover-up. I urge my Senate colleagues, do not muck up this bill. The president has already said he will sign it. That means he will sign the bill that we have here today. Do not change this bill. He is ready to sign it. Give it to him. Put it on his desk. Let's get justice for these victims. With that, I reserve.
The gentleman from Kentucky reserves. The gentlelady from North Carolina is recognized.
Reserve.
The gentlelady reserves.
Is the gentlelady prepared to close?
Yes, I am, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
I yield the remainder of my time to Ranking Member Mr. McGovern.
The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Thank you. And first, let me say how much I admire the courage of my Republican colleagues who are beside me here today. Mr. Speaker, at the end of the day, this is not about us, and it's not about politics. This is about the survivors, young girls who were exploited by powerful men, men who use money and power to take advantage of girls, some as young as 11 years old. The President of the United States calls it all a hoax. Can you imagine that? What an evil and disgusting thing to say. These young girls, now women, the survivors, what happened to them was horrific. They were sexually abused, many of them for years, and the President of the United States calls it all a hoax. What kind of messed up, sick in the head, immoral person says something like that? This bill is about making sure powerful men are held accountable. It's about demanding truth and transparency for the American people. Now, Republican leaders in this House lost control of the story. They lost the ability to hide behind procedure, and they lost the luxury of pretending that they were ever on the right side. The American people see it, survivors see it, and history will see it. And listening to the Speaker of the House's press conference today, I mean, it sounds like he basically wants to kill this whole thing. He's trying to obstruct and derail the process. Why the hell is he fighting so hard to do the opposite of what the survivors want? What an awful, awful thing to do. So let us release the files. Let's give survivors the transparency they've long been denied. Let us take back power from the rich billionaire elites who think they can do whatever they want with no justice or accountability. And let's remember exactly who had to be dragged here under duress and who stood up from day one demanding the truth. And with that, I yield back.
Members are reminded to refrain from engaging in personalities towards the President. The gentleman yields back. The gentlelady from North Carolina is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, those of us who did not sign the discharge petition are just as concerned about the victims, or if you, as some are calling them, survivors, as our colleagues who signed the discharge petition. We share contempt for anyone who abused anyone else. I've stood on this floor many times, Mr. Speaker, to speak out for victims and survivors of people who have been abused, and against anyone who breaks the law or takes advantage of an innocent person. We will not be characterized as insensitive to that. But what House Republicans who didn't sign the discharge petition remain focused on truth, accountability, and delivering real justice for Epstein victims. Again, I'll point out that it was under President Trump's Department of Justice that Jeffrey Epstein was arrested and tried. We have not tried to avoid this situation. We want things done the right way. We want maximum justice for these victims and survivors. Our rule today simply expedites consideration of the Massey-Khanna legislation. And as I said, we would have liked to have seen it pass last week when we gave an opportunity for it, but it was blocked by the Democrat minority leader. I ask for support for this rule, the underlying legislation. With that, I urge my colleagues to vote yes on the previous question, yes on the rule, and Mr. Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time and move the previous question on the resolution.
The gentlelady yields back the balance of her time. The question is on ordering the previous question on the resolution. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it.
Mr. Speaker, request the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings on this question will be postponed. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the chair will postpone further proceedings today on motions to suspend the rules on which a recorded vote or the yeas and nays are ordered, or votes objected to under Clause 6 of Rule 20. The House will resume proceedings on postponed questions at a later time. For what purpose does the gentleman from Ohio seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 4405.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 4405, a bill to require the Attorney General to release all documents and records in possession of the Department of Justice relating to Jeffrey Epstein and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Jordan, and the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Raskin, each will control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Ohio.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and to insert extraneous material on H.R. 4405.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
We all support holding bad guys accountable, and we're all going to vote for this resolution. But I think a little perspective is important. Democrats have spent 6 months talking about Epstein, even though they had 4 years to do something about it. Now, why would they do that? Why would they do that? Maybe it's to go after President Trump. Never forget, they shut down the government for 43 days. They said, don't worry about our military, don't worry about air traffic controllers, don't worry about our economy, don't worry about American families. No, no, no. Close the government for a month and a half because it might hurt the president. For the past decade, there's been one constant for Democrats. One constant: go after Trump. They spied on his campaign. Then it was Mueller. Then it was impeachment 1. Then it was impeachment 2. Then it was all the lawfare. Alvin Bragg, Fonnie Willis, Letitia James. Then it was Arctic Frost investigation at the Justice Department, surveilling United States senators and congressmen and a whole host of other Americans. Then it was Jack Smith and his gag orders and his raiding President Trump's home. Then it was a 43-day shutdown, and now it's Epstein. And by the way, the same party that did all that, they were also the ones who were texting with Mr. Epstein during a hearing where Michael Cohen was their witness in another effort to go after the president. Americans see through it all, and frankly, it's actually kind of sad. This obsession, this syndrome, this mindset that says we got to go after President Trump no matter what that they have. And when I think about it, I think it's because President Trump and Republicans have accomplished so much that they told the voters they were going to accomplish in the 2024 election. We're actually doing what we said we were going to do. President Trump said he was going to cut taxes, and he did. President Trump said he would secure the border, and he did. President Trump said he'd get men out of women's sports, and he did. President Trump said he would make sure Iran doesn't have nuclear capability, and he did. And he said he would get the hostages out of Gaza back into Israel, and he did. All in 9 months. So I don't know what causes this mindset, this syndrome that the left has, but I know one thing. It is real. Which brings me to last week. Think about what the Democrats did last week. The Democrats released an email that the Oversight Committee had obtained from the estate, an email from Mr. Epstein to Ms. Maxwell. When the Democrats released it, they redacted the victim's name, something we all support, something everyone supports, except in this case, no court had ordered that name redacted, no agency had redacted it, and the estate didn't redact it. And the victim had already went public. So why black out her name? Why black out her name? Because she had said in her book and had testified under oath that she never saw any wrongdoing by President Trump. So think about what they did. In an email between two criminals, Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell, in an email between two criminals, they hide the name of an individual who had went public and exonerated the president, and we know why, to distort and twist the message because they thought it might harm the president. Their position, cover up the names of people who are already public, but don't worry about other innocent people who the court said should remain private. Again, I think the American people see through it. They see through what the Democrats are doing. The American people know what this is. They know Democrats have nothing else to run on because of the success of this administration. So I say let's vote yes on this resolution, and then let's get focused on making sure we're doing what the American families elected us to do. With that, I reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Today, 4 months and 3 days after Mr. Khanna and Mr. Massey introduced their discharge petition, perhaps the most famous discharge petition in American history, the People's House unites across party lines to draw a moral line. We draw a line against the rape and sexual violation of children. We draw a line against the global criminal trafficking of girls and young women to service the pleasure of rich and powerful men who believe they are beyond all law and all morality. We draw a line to put the voices of the victims and the survivors first. We ask the Senate to join us without changes rather than obstruct this bill with dilatory amendments, legislative graffiti, and self-dealing million-dollar jackpot provisions for lucky senators. Just pass the bill. We're finally voting today because a bipartisan discharge petition led by Representatives Massey and Khanna and signed by 218 of us overthrew the determined obstruction of the Speaker. This forced vote means the House will no longer acquiesce in this astonishing real-time cover-up of a multi-billion-dollar global sex trafficking and child rape ring that has ravaged the lives of more than 1,000 girls and young women. We're here today because these victims, these survivors, these citizens, these inspiring women who have come to Washington are demanding nothing less than justice and the complete truth about who is responsible for their vicious abuse, including those responsible for enabling it, ignoring it, bankrolling it, and covering it up. We join them today in rejecting any more dangerous lies about the crimes they suffered. No, child sex abuse is not a hoax. It's a crime. Human trafficking is not a hoax. It's a crime. These crimes are a curse on children and young people across America, in universities and elementary schools, in churches and mosques and synagogues, in Boy Scout troops and college sports teams and summer camps. Anywhere the powerful and the rich believe they've got the opportunity and the impunity to exploit the young, the poor, the powerless, and the vulnerable. We must face the truth and find the co-conspirators still at large in one of America's most extensive and sophisticated sex trafficking and child abuse rings in history. Release of the file will expose the role of everybody who facilitated and covered up these crimes, like J.P. Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Deutsche Bank, and Bank of New York Mellon, which executed billions of dollars in transactions related to these offenses, as well as any bank executives who participated in the sexual abuse of girls and young women. We must expose everyone who covered up these crimes, like Alex Acosta, the former U.S. attorney in Miami, Donald Trump's labor secretary, who gave Jeffrey Epstein an unbelievable sweetheart plea deal, immunized the unnamed conspirators, and killed an investigation into Epstein's financial crimes that could have brought down the entire criminal network. And with that, I'm going to yield. I'll reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 4 minutes to the distinguished chair of the House Oversight Committee, Mr. Comer, the gentleman from Kentucky.
The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As chairman of the House Oversight Committee, I've always believed that sunshine is the best disinfectant. For years, the American people have demanded transparency about Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's horrific crimes and about the federal government's failure to protect the victims. The House Oversight Committee is conducting a thorough review of the federal government's investigation into Epstein. Our work goes far beyond the legislation before us today. We are committed to accountability, transparency, and justice for the American people and for the survivors of these appalling crimes. To date, the Oversight Committee has released more than 65,000 pages of documents, issued 13 subpoenas, and conducted interviews with 2 key witnesses, both of whom were Republicans. The Trump administration has provided us with Department of Justice materials and access to suspicious activity reports. Unfortunately, throughout this investigation, Democrats have chosen to manufacture yet another anti-Trump hoax instead of pursuing justice. They have mischaracterized witness testimony and selectively released documents complete with targeted redactions in an effort to smear President Trump. For example, former U.S. Attorney General Bill Barr, who oversaw the 2019 Epstein investigation, stated clearly under oath that the prosecution team found no evidence that President Trump committed wrongdoing. Despite this simple and straightforward fact, Ranking Member Robert Garcia, moments after that deposition, tiptoed out and publicly claimed that, quote, Barr could not clear Trump of wrongdoing. That was a lie, and we have the transcript to prove it. I invite the media to read the transcript. When the Oversight Committee interviewed former U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida, Alex Acosta, Democrats whipped themselves into a frenzy trying to manufacture a gotcha moment, but they failed. Mr. Acosta dismantled the Democrats' narrative. His testimony confirmed there was no contact between President Trump and Mr. Acosta and no connection between President Trump in the Epstein case. Next, Democrats resorted to selective leaks and doctored documents to mislead the American people. Oversight Committee Republicans have posted 65,000 pages of documents we have received to date. Democrats, by contrast, have released fewer than 12. In their latest selective leak, Democrats released just three of the 23,000 pages of documents from the Epstein estate. And they made redactions to 2 of those emails that changed both the context and the meaning of the 3 pages they released. When CNN called them out for their deceptive redactions, Representatives Stansbury and Crockett tried to blame Republicans for their own edits, for the Democrat Oversight Committee edits. After Democrats released only 3 emails, Republicans released over 23,000 pages. And what did Democrats say in response when we released every single document that we got? They claimed full transparency was meant to, quote, disorient or distract from their manufactured narrative. These are the same Democrats who chant, release the files every day until the files contradict the story they want to tell. That is the definition of hypocrisy. In contrast, full transparency exposed how Epstein appears to be TDS patient zero. The evals reveal a journalist coached Epstein to blackmail then presidential candidate Donald Trump.
The gentleman is recognized.
The files also show that a House Democrat colluded with Epstein during the 2019 oversight hearing to discredit witness with a vendetta against President Trump. And unsurprisingly, Democrats have been silent about their colleagues' coordination with Epstein. Another email shows Democrat fundraisers invited Epstein to an event or to meet privately with Hakeem Jeffries as part of their 2013 effort to win a majority. So Hakeem Jeffries' campaign solicited money from Jeffrey Epstein. That's what we found in the last document batch. The files underscore why former President Trump must appear for his deposition. We've subpoenaed him. To date, the Democrats have done nothing to help us secure his appearance. I support full transparency. The Oversight Committee will continue to work to get the truth to the American people and to get justice for the victims. That's our goal of this investigation. With that, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, we reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I should just point out that we've heard now from the 2 distinguished chairmen of the Judiciary and the Oversight Committee, and they've spoken almost exclusively to denounce Democrats. We have a bipartisan coalition here demanding the truth about the largest child sex abuse and trafficking ring, perhaps in American history, certainly in this century, and they want to just throw stones at the Democrats. What a remarkable failure of leadership we're seeing from the other side. And I imagine that the chairman of the Oversight Committee will follow up his spectacular failure in trying to impeach President Biden with his spectacular failure in trying to block the resolution we brought to the floor today. I'm happy to yield 1 minute. Excuse me, you're not recognized, whoever's speaking. And I'd like to yield 1 minute to the very distinguished minority leader on the House Oversight Committee.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you. And Mr. Speaker, it's wonderful to hear Republicans and certainly the chairman of our committee finally wanting transparency on this issue. It is time to end this White House cover-up now. Now, we know that Donald Trump has tried everything to kill our Jeffrey Epstein investigation, and he's failed. And now he's panicking. He's about to lose his Epstein vote to force the Department of Justice to release the files. And let's be crystal clear. Trump has the power to release the files today. He does not even need a vote. And he continues to defy the subpoena of the Oversight Committee to release all the files. What is Donald Trump hiding? What is Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, hiding? Why won't they release the Epstein files right now? And he must explain to the public why he moved sex trafficker and monster Ghislaine Maxwell to a cushy, low-security prison after her interview with Trump's personal lawyer. He should declare, and every Republican should say, that she does not deserve a pardon or a commutation.
The gentleman's time has expired.
30 more seconds. I grant him 20 more seconds.
We don't care how much money you have, what party you're in. how powerful you are. We should get justice for the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein. And our work on the committee is not over. Next up are the bank and financial records to follow and expose Epstein's network. Today, there should be a unanimous vote on releasing the files, and we will get justice. And with that, I yield back.
And we reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield a minute and a half to the distinguished gentleman from California and member of the Judiciary Committee, Mr. Kiley.
The gentleman from California is recognized.
I have consistently called for the maximum possible level of transparency when it comes to the heinous crimes of Jeffrey Epstein. That's why I've consistently said I am inclined to vote for this bill, and it's why I will be doing so today. The victims deserve the truth. They deserve justice, and they deserve closure. For months, they've had to wake up every day and see the name of their tormentor on the front page of every newspaper, on every TV channel, as has the broader American public. This issue has been so politicized by so many people in so many ways, which is deeply unfortunate when we're talking about matters of the highest sensitivity and untold suffering. It is my hope that the passage of this resolution today, together with the work of the Oversight Committee, will lead to the expeditious release of all pertinent material so that we can move on. Let's get accountability, let's get answers, and let's get this over with. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman reserves.
Yeah, we reserve.
The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
I yield 1 minute to the very distinguished gentlelady from Washington, a member of the Judiciary Committee.
The gentlelady from Washington is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, thousands of girls, children, were abused by Jeffrey Epstein and his massive and powerful ring of pedophiles and protectors of pedophiles. We can't say all their names here. We don't have time. But let's at least bring a few of the courageous survivors and their names onto the House floor right here as we debate this. Haley Robson, Jenna Lisa Jones, Michelle Licata, Ashley Rubright, Annie Farmer, Marina Lacerda, Rachel Benavides. These women have carried a burden that they never should have had to bear. And today, they demand, we demand, the American people demand that we answer their clarion call to justice. Today, despite all the giant cover-up attempts by this administration and this Speaker of the House, we will vote to release all the Epstein files. To be clear, there is no protection for pedophiles, no protection for the rich and powerful men of either party who participated, who turned a blind eye, who winked and grinned while witnessing the horrific abuses of young children. Release all the damn files now.
We reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield a minute and a half to the distinguished gentleman from North Carolina and member of our committee.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have been very supportive of this effort, specifically to bring justice to the victims of this horrific series of crimes. However, I have worked behind the scenes to raise concerns with this petition as it is currently drafted. Specifically, I believe that there is grave risk at harming innocent people. And I repeat, harming innocent people. When innocent people are harmed, that is not furthering justice. With an investigation of this size and a file that is as large as the Epstein files and as poorly defined as that is in this petition, there will invariably be people who are released pursuant to this discharge petition who had nothing to do with criminal activity. Imagine, if you will, a bellman, a waiter, some type of doorman, a mere social attendee who had no impact whatsoever on the criminal activities of Jeffrey Epstein, no participation. Their lives are forever ruined. And I'm reading specifically from the petition's language that prohibited grounds for withholding information in this file are embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity. And I would just submit, if you were going to be embarrassed, if you were going to suffer social harm, and that is all of the encompassed activity that you were a part of, you will be named in this petition. And I resent that. Innocent people should not be harmed when we are pursuing justice. I understand the political nature of this petition. I resent the fact that there was not room for good faith amendments. And I urge the Senate to protect innocent people. I yield back.
Yields back. The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you. I'm yielding 1 minute to the distinguished gentlelady from California, Representative Kamlager-Dove.
The gentlelady from California is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, 1 in 3 women and girls around the world are physically and sexually assaulted each year. Of the 152 women in this body, that means 51 women. It includes your daughters, your sisters, your nieces, your mothers. And with the Epstein Files, we have a chance to change that. But real talk, the administration doesn't need a discharge petition. It has not complied with the subpoena, and it has the power to release the files today. Instead, the man in the most powerful position in the world has used the full weight of the government to block and obfuscate and deflect the full release of the files. It is the same person who intimidated female members of Congress to withdraw names from the petition, who responded quiet piggy to a female reporter who asked about the files, and who nominated an alleged sexual predator to be our AG. It is the same person whose name appears more than any other in the Epstein emails. And in the pantheon of violence, a sexual predator is the worst of the worst, so why protect him? It's also curious that the judiciary is managing this debate and has not even had this come before the committee. I wonder why. Release the files now!
We reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Roy, chairman of the Constitution Subcommittee.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
I thank the chairman. Today, a united Republican Party and a bipartisan supermajority is going to pass a bill to increase transparency regarding the egregious abuses by Jeffrey Epstein, a goal that anyone of conscience desires. That is, in totality, an important statement to check the rich and the powerful. Remember how we got here. After decades, it was President Trump's Department of Justice that indicted Jeffrey Epstein in July of 2019. It was President Trump's DOJ that arrested and indicted Ms. Maxwell. It was the Republican-led Oversight Committee, through 13 subpoenas, that has released 65,000 pages of files in just 10 months. Meanwhile, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have largely ignored this issue. It was Democrats who redacted an email to mislead the American people about the truth of a witness that exonerated President Trump. It was a Democrat, Representative Plassett, who literally texted with Jeffrey Epstein as we questioned Michael Cohen. It was Democrats who shut down the government, resulting in the delay of swearing in of members. As we vote to pass this legislation, and it will pass, it is impossible, however, to avoid problems with its politicization. One colleague has offensively gone so far as to say that to oppose this bill means you support pedophiles. Yet I know good public servants, former law enforcement, former prosecutors who never knew Epstein, never knew any visitors to his criminal enterprise, who have genuine concerns about supporting this bill out of fear of creating new victims or harming existing victims, or both. That is what we've reduced Congress to, inserting itself into the prosecutorial process for political motivations driven heavily by hatred of President Trump. We should be concerned about victim privacy, concerned about risking disclosure of non-credible allegations, of child sexual abuse materials, future investigations. But here's the deal. The leaders of this nation must expose abuses by the rich and the powerful. That is why President Trump and the House have been working for full transparency. But we should be motivated by truth and justice for all, not politics. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you. I yield 1 minute to the distinguished gentlelady from Massachusetts, Representative Clark, the minority whip.
The gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This should be an easy vote. This is about justice for the victims and survivors of Jeffrey Epstein. This is about every victim of trafficking and sexual abuse, monstrous crimes that thrive in secrecy and fear. Yet instead of shining a light on that darkness, just moments ago, Donald Trump defended the continued obstruction of releasing these files. Even as House Republicans prepare to vote yes today, Speaker Johnson is calling this a show vote. He's calling it dangerous. He is signaling the U.S. Senate to block it. Republicans continue to use their power to shield rich pedophiles from justice. If you can't stand up for these survivors, how can anyone trust you to stand up for them? I yield back.
The gentlelady yields back.
We yield.
The gentleman reserves. Does the gentleman reserve?
Yeah, we reserve.
The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
We reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Yes, just very quickly, what happened under the Biden administration? Well, under the Biden administration, Ghislaine Maxwell was prosecuted for conspiring to sexually abuse and traffic girls in 2020. Right when in 2021, she was convicted. In December of 2021, after a month-long trial in Judge Nathan's courtroom, in 2022, Maxwell was sentenced to 20 years in prison under the Biden administration for sex trafficking and sexual abuse of minors. But when President Trump took office in January of 2025, they killed the investigation. They assembled all the materials, they got all the prosecutors together, and they terminated the investigation. I yield 1 minute to the distinguished gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Raja Krishnamurthy.
The gentleman from Illinois is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong support to release the Epstein files. First, this issue is beyond party. It's a question of justice. Survivors have waited too long. Stop the delay. This is not a hoax. Release the files. Second, we must face a hard truth. Silence that shields the powerful is a betrayal of those they hurt. Congress must reject any attempt, including a presidential pardon or any form of clemency for Ghislaine Maxwell. This cannot be done. This would be a cover-up. We cannot allow clemency of any kind for Maxwell, not now, not ever. Survivors deserve justice. I urge a strong yes vote. Thank you.
Yields back.
I want to thank the gentleman for his eloquent remarks. Pardons are for people who are contrite. Pardons are for people who are repentant. Pardons are not for people who lie. Every member of this body should immediately, verbally, vocally denounce the idea of clemency, commutation, or pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell, and we reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Yeah, we reserve, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman reserves.
I yield 30 seconds to Ms. Leisure Fernandez.
The gentlelady is recognized.
There were thousands of girls and young women abused, trafficked, and used by Epstein, the elite and the powerful who believed they could get away with it. Epstein told the young victims that he controlled the banks and the government. Those women refused to be silenced, and today they have pierced the dark with their light. Anytime any girl is trafficked, molested, or abused, the world must stand up. Today, the House proves Jeffrey Epstein wrong. The Senate must do the same tomorrow.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from California. 1.5 minutes to the gentleman from California.
The gentleman from California is recognized.
I thank you, Chairman. Mr. Speaker, a minute and a half or an hour, the words would still have to be the same. We've all said that this will pass the House, perhaps unanimously today. I think all of us who have looked at the details of this particular bill know that it is flawed and that before it goes to the President's desk, it has to be amended as it can be amended in the Senate. And we call on the Senate to amend it so that we protect the innocent, so that we have the provisions that were intended perhaps to be in this bill but are not properly written. With that, President Trump has said, get it to his desk, he will sign it. President Trump has said he will do it. But I'm going to say to all of us, it is also important that we remember that Epstein is dead, but people live on, people who were innocent, people who in fact should not be named. We're not talking about the rich and the powerful. We're talking about the very victims. That is what we need to make sure is amended before it goes to the President's desk. And with that, I thank the chairman for his time. I think no more needs to be said that this body will vote for it all, but let's not kid ourselves. It has to be changed so that it properly protects both the tradition of the grand jury and clearly those innocent people that would otherwise be swept up. And I yield back.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman yields back.
Reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
This whole bill is about protecting the innocent. Mr. Speaker, the Senate must pass the bill as we are passing it today and as the President has said he would sign it. after changing his position on the bill over the weekend when he could see the tidal wave of public opinion moving against him. Let's pass this bill, pass it in the Senate, sign the bill, and let us go ahead and release the complete file. I yield 30 seconds to the distinguished gentlelady from Arizona, Representative Ansari.
The gentlelady is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, the walls are closing in on Donald Trump and his rich and powerful friends who either abused or raped children or were enabling and complicit in these heinous crimes for decades. This vote today matters, but here is the truth. Donald Trump could direct the Department of Justice to release the files today. He is choosing not to. They are already under subpoena, led by oversight Democrats, and have refused. This is an ongoing cover-up by the Trump White House, and Mike Johnson and the House has been complicit. What is Trump hiding? Why not release the files today? This is a
time has expired.
Release the files today. Thank you.
The gentlelady's time has expired. The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 2 minutes to the distinguished gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Van Drew.
The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized.
Today I want to talk about hypocrisy. Let me be clear. I was from Jumpstart, a co-sponsor of this very bill. From the beginning, we should never protect pedophiles. But for months, my Democratic colleagues have done what they think is politically convenient through all the yelling, through all the tears, through all the sadness. They say releasing the Epstein list is of grave concern to them. If that was true, where were they during the 4 years of the Biden presidency? Why didn't they demand the release of these files from Jumpstart in year 1? Mr. Speaker, why didn't they ask for them in year 2? Or if that wasn't good enough, maybe in year 3. They had control, or not even in his final year of office. Other than a single letter the ranking member wrote in 2019, a single letter, not one Democrat on the committee spoke out about Epstein or his victims of this very terrible tragedy, other than to say that he didn't like the plea deal. Let me say this. When they stand here today insisting how badly they want these files released, why didn't they do it? Yet they stayed silent for year after year after year after year under Joe Biden. It's impossible. Mr. Speaker, it is impossible to see that as genuine. What I see is a group more focused on scoring political points and drama than protecting abused children. The record is clear. Under Republicans, far more information has been released in the last 6 months than was done during all 4 years of the previous presidency under Joe Biden. We've actually been the party of transparency. We've released the information. We've told the truth. Unfortunately, and I'm sad to say it, they have been the party of hypocrisy. Mr. Chair, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
You know, I've never heard a more defensive presentation in my life than what we're hearing from over there. The gentleman should spend a little less time pointing out hypocrisy and a little more time trying to ferret out cruelty, humiliation, and rape. And that's what we're working on. I yield 30 seconds to the distinguished gentleman from California, Mr. Min.
The gentleman from California is recognized.
I want to remind you that we are all here voting on this bill because President Trump, who has the power to release the Epstein files at any time, has refused to do so, calling this a hoax. We're here because Speaker Mike Johnson and President Trump have gone to extraordinary lengths to try to kill and delay the discharge petition, including refusing to seat Adelita Grijalva for over 40 days and threatening House Republicans who signed on. Now, several of my Republican colleagues have accused those of us House Democrats who support justice here of having Trump derangement syndrome. You all suffer from something much worse, which is pedophile protection syndrome. Stop protecting pedophiles. Release the Epstein files. The victims deserve justice. I yield back.
We reserve.
Members are reminded to direct their comments to the chair.
No kidding.
The
No.
gentleman from Maryland reserves. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
We reserve.
The gentleman from Ohio reserves. The gentleman from Maryland.
I'm yielding 30 seconds to my friend, Representative Walkinshaw from Virginia.
The gentleman is recognized.
For years, Mr. Speaker, we have watched dangerous conspiracies like Pizzagate and QAnon shape our political landscape. They help fuel the rise of President Trump and were built on baseless claims about secret pedophile rings, while the real documented case of child sex trafficking involving Jeffrey Epstein remains shrouded in secrecy because President Trump refuses to release the files. What is President Trump hiding? Why won't he release the files? The House finally has the opportunity to act, release the files, and let the American people
Gentleman's time
see
has
the
expired.
truth. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back.
We reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
We reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Granting 30 seconds to the very distinguished gentlelady who is finally with us, Representative Adelita Grijalva from Arizona 7th.
The gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to acknowledge the survivors, family members, and advocates who are here today and have never given up. The legislation in front of us, at its core, is about something very simple. The survivors deserve justice. The American people deserve the truth. To every survivor watching, your courage is inspiring. You are the reason why this vote is happening today. Protecting women and children from pedophiles should not be a Democratic issue, should not be a Republican issue. It should be a human rights issue and a matter of justice. I urge my colleagues to vote yes on the Epstein Files Transparency Act. I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you, and we reserve.
The chair will remind all persons in the gallery that they are here as guests of the House and that any manifestation of approval or disapproval of proceedings is in violation of the rules of the House. The gentleman from Maryland.
Yeah, but I'll just add, they're here as honored guests of the House, and we're delighted they're here, and with that, we reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Yeah, we reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Maryland.
I'm granting 30 seconds to Representative Lois Frankel from Florida.
The gentlelady from Florida is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, for far too long, the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse were failed by a justice system that minimized their suffering and prosecutors who treated young girls as if they were criminals. That was wrong, and I am here with my colleagues to promise this. We will get to the bottom of why the Epstein survivors were treated so badly, who made those decisions, and who were they protecting. No more secrecy, no more excuses. We all deserve the truth, and I thank the survivors for their courage and perseverance. Your voices are being heard.
The gentlelady yields back. The gentleman reserves the balance of his time. The gentleman from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 1 minute to the distinguished gentleman from the great state of Louisiana, the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, Mr.
The gentleman from Louisiana is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Chairman Jordan, for doing such an extraordinary job on all of this. For 43 long days, the Democrats held this House and the entire country hostage. Finally, with the lights back on, this body's returning to our regular legislative session. We have a lot of work to do. My colleagues on this side of the chamber are ready and eager to get back to our urgent legislative work that we promised the American people we would do. We've got to continue lowering the cost of health care. We've got to bring down prices for American families, and we've got to finish the regular appropriations process, just to name a few of those priorities. And I wish I could say that our first order of business would be to get to those urgent priorities, but of course we're here spending time on the floor about something else. This is something we could have resolved last week when we brought a unanimous consent to pass this discharge with the full support of the body. But our friends over here who are arguing today stalled that. They objected to it, and they wanted to have this exercise instead. And that's why we say that this is a show vote. That's what this is. They're making a show of it. And it really is a shame. We have some heroic women in the chamber today. I met with many of them a while back. They're in the gallery here. They have come forward. They have shown their faces. They've used their names to share the unspeakable tragedies that many of them were subjected to, some of them when they were very young. And it is a heroic service to the country. They are seeking justice, and the justice has been delayed for too long. The Department of Justice, many years ago, should have brought these charges. It took too long to do it. And now we're in this process of making sure all the American people get the information, but we have to do it in the right way, After 4 years of Democrat control under President Biden, they were not truthful with us about a lot of things. The Democrats insisted the border was secure. We knew it wasn't. They insisted that inflation was transitory. We knew it wouldn't be. They misled the American people about the obvious mental and physical decline of the previous commander-in-chief. And now those same Democrats are demanding transparency. Suddenly, transparency is their new word. Out of nowhere, they've taken a curious concern in the Epstein investigation, all in the name of that, in the name of transparency. But the question has been asked here many times during the debate on the floor, and everybody questioning why it is that Democrats have done this right now have to look at the obvious facts. The Democrats had all the Epstein files in their possession for 4 long years under the Biden presidency. The Biden Department of Justice had these files, and no one on this side who is breathless today about the urgency of this release ever said a word about it. And it was the Democrats who could have urged President Biden's Department of Justice to go beyond prosecuting just Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, but they didn't do it. And so it's a fair question to ask today, why now? Why the sudden urgent interest in Jeffrey Epstein? Look, we know why. It's because the Democrats were never interested in transparency or executing justice or protecting the victims of this unspeakable tragedy before. The simple truth is obvious for everybody to see. This is a political exercise for Democrats, and it pains me to say it. I wish that was not the truth, but it is, and it's undeniable. This is as deceitful and dishonest as their pointless stunt was to shut the government down. Democrats are using the Epstein tragedy, the unspeakable evils that this guy committed with his trafficking ring and all of the abuses that they made these young women go through. They're using that as a political weapon to try to distract from their failures as a party and to try their best to try to tie President Trump somehow into this wretched scandal. The president had nothing to do with it. He's been very clear, and he has nothing to hide, and that's why he's endorsed the vote today. I suspect this vote will be probably unanimous. But here's the important point that everybody needs to understand. We have been advocates of maximum transparency, but we have also insisted that the victims be carefully protected. The Oversight Committee has been doing extraordinary work, and we've got some of the most vigorous advocates on the Republican and Democrat side on the Oversight Committee. They've been working in earnest to deliver transparency for the American people and to do it in a responsible manner. What do we mean by that? The bipartisan effort over there is already producing all the results that the discharge petition seeks and much, much more. Chairman Comer and all of these advocates over there have been releasing thousands of documents, for example, from the Epstein estate. By the way, in my view, that's been the greatest treasure trove of information because it's yielded for us Epstein's own personal flight logs, his financial records, his daily calendars, and so much more. But importantly, none of that was addressed or is addressed in the legislation that's being voted on today. The estate files wouldn't even have been encompassed in that. And so it goes to show that the Oversight Committee is doing it the right way. From the very beginning, we've been insistent that this matter be handled carefully and with the utmost caution and care for the people who have been harmed. They should not be made to suffer any longer. We're talking about real people's lives at stake here, and young victims who don't want to be dragged into this political game that could get hurt further. But the Democrats are rushing the release of thousands of unsubstantiated documents that may be included in this, that are going to be in the public domain with the passage of this bill. And there are serious deficiencies in the legislation that I have noted at length, and Republicans have to work to address those deficiencies in the Senate if and when this legislation is advanced. I stood before the American public today at our press conference, and I explained in detail the dangers of the discharge petition. We have posted at my website, speaker.gov, a summary. The legal counsel, a small army of lawyers, put this together. I used to be a federal court litigator. Many of my colleagues who have spoken today were. We understand the dangers of how this was haphazardly drawn up. And among them, by the way, Mr. Speaker, before I forget, I seek unanimous consent to enter into this document into the record. It's on the website. It's entitled, How the Flaws of H.R. 4405 Could Re-Victimize Epstein's Victims, Create New Victims, and Damage the Judicial System. It is dated today. Thank you. And it summarizes just 5 or 6 of the major concerns. Among them, it fails to fully protect victim privacy. It could create new categories of victims. It potentially jeopardizes grand jury secrecy. It fails to prohibit release of child sexual abuse materials that are not appropriately defined in the legislation. It jeopardizes future federal investigations, and we have national security concerns regarding classified information. We'll put this in the record because we need the legislative record to reflect what is the legislative intent behind this vote. I used to litigate cases. We would litigate federal statutes and whether or not they could survive, and legislative intent is important, and we need to say clearly for the record, as a Speaker of the House, I'm saying to you, this legislation that will pass today is flawed and it must be amended. The question is, why didn't we amend it here before we passed it? Because the authors won't allow it. Because under the rules of the House, under a discharge petition, they have to agree to consent for the legislation to be amended, and they're not doing that. So now we rely upon our partners in the other chamber to get that done, and they need to do that. The victims deserve our utmost respect. In fact, they should be saluted for their courage. And the young women who have not come forward, who are now, some of them are middle-aged women who have not come forward, also deserve our respect, and they deserve to be protected. Republicans support transparency. We want maximum transparency, especially when it comes to disclosing the names of anybody who had anything to do with these evils, anybody who conspired with or aided in any way Jeffrey Epstein. They must be brought to justice. We want the bill to be amended so it doesn't, at the same time, violate victim privacy, create new victims, disclose the names of any whistleblower or informant, cause the release of grand jury materials or child sexual abuse materials, or undermine our national security. And if and when the Senate takes this up, we will work with our colleagues over there to make sure that these things are corrected. I'll just close with this simple thought. We've been at this a while. It's drug on for a while. But it's time for this to come to light. I expect that this will be a unanimous vote, and it will reflect what I think every member in this chamber, and I'll say this now, at least in recent days, every member of the chamber on the Democrat side, they didn't say anything for 4 years, but they're for maximum transparency now, and so is this side. But we want to do it in a respectful and careful manner so that we don't subject innocent people to further harm. And that has been the whole thing. I told all my members today I'll be voting yes on this, and I suspect almost everyone will. We'll send it to the Senate, and we hope it's corrected. Thank you for the time, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
Gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
I'm yielding to Mr. Gomez for the sole purpose of making a parliamentary inquiry.
Mr. Gomez is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask a point of parliamentary inquiry. Is this an appropriate time to point out that the Republicans named children's savings account in their so-called One Big Beautiful Bill after Donald Trump, someone connected to one of the most notorious pedophiles in this country, or that the Speaker of the House just lied on the floor by stating that there was protection, there isn't protections for the victims in the Epstein bill?
The gentleman is no longer recognized. The gentleman from Maryland, you are recognized.
Thank you. I am prepared to close. I've got no more speakers on my side.
The gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. No.
Gentleman from Ohio has 30 seconds.
Can I inquire how much time is remaining?
30 seconds. Six minutes, 15 seconds.
Take 30 his.
We reserve.
Gentleman reserved. Gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
I'll take the opportunity of the Speaker's presence to respond to some of the things that he said. In the very presence of the victims and the survivors who come to join us today, the Speaker said that now would be a time we should be working on urgent legislative work. Mr. Speaker, justice is urgent legislative work. The truth is urgent legislative work. The Speaker says, why now? Why now? Well, Mr. Speaker, you were the one who refused to swear in Adelita Grajova for 50 days. We would have done it 50 days ago, but she provided the 218th signature on the discharge petition. So why now? It was because of your dilatory tactics, your delay, your postponement of it. Now, the gentleman says that there are not sufficient protections. There are protections in the bill for the victims to make sure that their names will be redacted. And yet we hear even the Speaker of the House of Representatives openly inviting the U.S. Senate to start finger painting on this bill, which we have waited more than 5 months to bring to the floor. The Senate should pass the bill exactly as it's written. The President should sign it exactly as he said he would when he finally changed his mind. And the Epstein file must be released. Moreover, if the President is serious about what he's saying, he's got the power to release the Epstein file right now. Nobody's stopping him. It's within his possession. It's within his control. He can release the whole thing, and he can redact the names of the victims and others who are innocent in this process. Mr. Speaker, Speaker Johnson said that these are unspeakable evils. Well, because of the bravery and the invincible courage of the women who've joined us today, they're no longer unspeakable. They're spoken. They're articulated. The cat is out of the bag, and we know what's been going on for decades. It's been a double standard of justice, going all the way back to Alex Acosta, who later got rewarded with a cabinet appointment in the Trump administration. Alex Acosta had a 60-count federal indictment ready to go against all kinds of people for an interstate sex trafficking conspiracy with solicitation, with child sex abuse, all of it. And he traded that 60-count federal indictment for 1 count in state court. And Jeffrey Epstein ended up getting the sweetest of sweetheart deals ever on the plea bargain front. He was free from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. to do whatever he wanted and continuing to perpetrate his crimes and run his conspiracy, and then he would come and he would watch TV and spend the night in jail. And it was over in about a year after the rape and sexual abuse of hundreds and hundreds of girls, and he kept going and he kept at it. We want the whole truth to come out. This is the United States of America. Even the British monarchy wouldn't put up with this. How about the American democracy? How about we say, no way, we're not going to allow this cover-up to go on for 1 day more. And I'm glad the president changed his mind after pulling out all the stops to try to get one of our Republican colleagues to change their mind, to remove their name from the discharge petition. He gave up. And I want to salute the gentlelady from Colorado from having the courage to stand her ground in the Situation Room in the White House and say, no, she wasn't going to be bullied. No. So I'm glad the president changed his mind. But let's be clear, Mr. President, you've got the power today to release the entire file. That's what you called for. That's what Pam Bondi called for. That's what Kash Patel called for. So we don't need anybody calling for the Senate to slow things down for more weeks and more months. The American people have had it. We'll reserve.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman is reminded to direct your comments to the chair and not your colleagues. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized, and you do have 90 seconds remaining. Correction.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 30 seconds to the gentleman from Texas.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
The Democrat Party, with help from the dishonest media, used the Epstein files not to seek justice from the victims, but to smear President Trump. And it's sickening, quite sickening. The Democrats have used the Epstein files to distract the American people from the wins President Trump and his administration have delivered for the American people for the last 11 months. I'm proud to work with my Republican colleagues on the House Oversight Committee in coordination with the Justice Department. 65,000 pages of documents are related from Epstein released. What have my Democrat colleagues done? They selectively leaked and altered documents to mislead the American people. As President Trump has stated, we have nothing to hide here. I'm voting to release the files so that we can move on from this smear campaign the Democrats have manufactured. God bless
Gentleman's
Donald J.
time has
Trump.
expired. Gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Ohio reserves. Gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
All right. How much time do I have to close?
You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank all of America for tuning in to this. I want to thank Representatives Massey and Khanna, Representative Green, all of those who have insisted upon bringing the truth forward and a reckoning with the reality of one of the worst international child sex trafficking rings ever to exist in the United States and the cover-up attendant to it. We've got the opportunity today to do justice for the victims, for the survivors who have come forward to say that the voice of the victims and the survivors must be put at the very center of our deliberations. Not shunted off to the side, not submerged, not subordinated, but put at the very center. We must hear from the people who themselves were victimized by this nightmare. Now, our colleagues across the aisle seem to want to make this into some sort of partisan contest. I haven't heard so much talk about the Democrats since the Democratic National Convention. And all that we've done here is to say we want to bring the truth forward, along with a bipartisan group. We don't want the Senate monkeying around with this in order to slow things down. We want it passed in the Senate. We want it signed. And before that, if the president is true to his word and he wants to see all of this come to light, he can release it now instead of fighting, kicking, and screaming every step along the way. But I'm glad he's changed his mind, and I hope he maintains the momentum he's got to stick with the vast majority of the American people who want to see that the truth is done here. And while he's at it, the administration could reconsider their terrible policies, gutting federal offices and programs designed to combat violence against women. The DOJ terminated hundreds of grants to police departments, defunding the police when it comes to investigating violent sex crimes and to support victims. His DOJ destroyed programs to combat international human trafficking rings. Let's get back on the side of the women. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Speaker Johnson said it right. Why now after 4 years of doing nothing? Because going after President Trump is an obsession with these guys. Best example is John Brennan testified in front of our committee under oath, said he was not involved with the dossier. Only problem is Tulsi Gabbard declassified a report, released that report, and it said exactly the opposite. And she related a story in there where a CIA official went up to Mr. Brennan and said, we shouldn't include this in the report. And John Brennan's response was, yeah, but doesn't it ring true? Forget the facts, forget the truth, go after Trump, put it in. Same dynamic at work here. We're all for protecting innocent victims. We're all for exposing the bad guys who did bad things. But this is an obsession with the left. For 10 years, it's going after President Trump. So vote yes. Make sure the bad guys are held accountable. We all want to do that. Speaker Johnson's right. I think it's going to be unanimous. But understand what they're doing, because they had 4 years and didn't do a darn thing. With that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 4405? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended. The bill is passed, and without
Can I request a recorded vote, Mr. Speaker?
The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Yeah, I'm requesting a recorded vote.
The gentleman from Maryland has requested a recorded vote. Those favoring a recorded vote will rise. A sufficient number having risen, a recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. Pursuant to Clause 9 of Rule 20, this 15-minute vote on the motion to suspend the rules will be followed by 5-minute votes on ordering the previous question on House Resolution 879, adoption of House Resolution 879 if ordered, and adoption of House Resolution 878. This is a 15-minute vote.